That's for sure. It's good. Baruch Hashem. It's all good. Okay. What I want to look at is on Vav Amud Beis, the two dots there, the Amarova. Okay, so we're going to look into this, the sugya of Matanah menat lehachzir, and it's quite an involved sugya. So I want to go through the Gemara today with Rashi's, and then let's see where we go. Okay, let's see how far we're going to go if we get to it. It's quite. I mean, we got to look carefully at the way the Gemara presents this case, and we can understand it. Okay, so Amarova. Helech mana al menas shetachziren li b'mecher lo kana. So what is it? The guy says what? Yeah, take this money. I'll give you the money, right? Here's the money. It's not an issue. He says to the guy, take the money. What? And then what? He says what? I'm giving it to you on the condition that you give it back to me. Al menas shetachziren li, that you give it back to me. Okay, and then if he says that's part of a purchase, part of an acquisition, so it doesn't work. Okay, so he's giving them, but he's got a conditional. He's got to give them back. Then that doesn't work. We'll see what Rashi says there. We'll get there. So that's the first case. But Isha and a Mukadeshes, when it comes to an Isha, when it comes to a woman, and a Mukadeshes, if he does the same thing, it doesn't work. But Pidyon Aben and Benoi Padui. When it comes to Pidyon Aben, then the same thing. Ein Benoi Padui. His son is not redeemed. But Truma Yatsa Yadei Natina. When he does it with Truma, see Truma, part of the din of Truma is that he's got to give the Truma to the Kohen. Okay, that's the din. It's not that the Kohen has to own it, but he's just got to be given it. So he's got to remove. So it says if he gives it with Truma, then what? Yatsa Yadei Natina. Va'asula Asos came. So, but you can't do that. Why? Because it looks like a Kohen who's Messiah. What's Messiah? Like Siyata Dishmaya.
Helps.
Correct. So it looks like the Kohen is helping on with the Beis Hagranos. What does it mean that he's Messiah by Beis Hagranos? What it means is that like he's benefiting from it. Like so he gives it to him and he takes it back. And the Kohen sometimes there seems to be a bit of a shmuchel going on there. That's what it means. Messiah by Beis Hagranos. It's a bit of a shmuchel. That's the easiest way to understand it. Okay. So then the Gemara says, okay, my kasaver. My kasaver. What does it mean? My kasaver Rava. What's Rava actually going on about this? So Rava went through a case, and we brought all these different cases where the person goes through a process where I give you money, okay, and then I say to you, but I'm only giving you that money on the condition that you give it back to me, right? That's the deal. I give you the money on condition I give it back. And when you do that, there seems to be that there's something missing. So here says Rashi. If you look at Rashi there, karka. For example, when you sell land, the kaimalan the kaman shehi nikne bekesef. Eino nikne bekach the lav midi yahivle. It keeps coming up. The same thing is that when he gives him, in order for there to be a kinyan kesef, there seems to be a need to be midi yahivle. What does midi yahivle mean? That he's giving him something. So it's not just a symbolic thing, because that's what seems to be coming out here. It's some type of like a symbolic thing where he's giving him the money and then he's like takes it back and then he says, well, I've done the kinyan that I needed to do. No, because lav midi yahivle. But if it applies in karka, the lav midi yahivle, so then obviously it's not going to apply when? In Kiddushin, because we've learned in Kiddushin that it's got to be menat. It's got to be, he's got to give her something. So that's what Rashi says there. Unless he doesn't say, but why does he work with it when it comes to truma? He says, Yatzedem sin umoichra lekohanim v'hadamim shelo lekamen parichim v'nafshach. So the Gemara is going to ask on that. So we have a situation where we understand he's not giving anything. He's not giving anything. If he's not giving anything, so the thing doesn't work. So then the question is, so what is Rava actually holding? So it says, the Gemara, says if you want to hold that that a Matanah almanas lehachzir is what is called a Matanah, then what? Afilu kulo inami. What does that mean? Afilu kulo inami.
it should all not work then, like either it works or it doesn't.
Including what?
Truma.
Including truma, right? So then even truma shouldn't work, right? So on the one, if you're going to say it is a proper matanah, then he's giving him something. He's giving him something. But if you're going to say that it's not a matanah, then he hasn't given him anything. So why should it even work with truma? It says furthermore, Haravahu. In actual fact, the Rava is the one who said Matanah menas lehachzir shma Matanah. So you want to say, is Rava holding like that, Matanah menas lehachzir shma Matanah, or not? But it's Rava is the one who made that statement. Just by the way, remember, Rava is what? An Tana and Amora.
Tana?
He's an Amora, sorry.
Right. Remember, if you don't have a Rebbe before you, you're an Amora. He's one of the early Amoraim. So he's throwing out these dinim, which is interesting.
So I was understanding what is the Matanah we're talking about? Is it just a standard gift for nothing?
So a Matanah menas lehachzir means that I've got like these rashes breaking out of me. Sorry. A Matanah menas lehachzir means that I give you something, but the condition of the Matanah is that you have to give it back to me.
Right. So why is it?
So the question is, if I'm giving you something that you have to give back to me, is it actually considered as I've given you anything?
Why?
I give you $100, but the deal is you give it back to me. Not a loan. It's not a loan. It's not a loan. You got to give me. Remember, a loan. A loan is what does it say? A milva lehachzir. I give you a loan, and what do you do with the loan?
You use it, and then you give back the value.
This is I'm giving you this 100 rand note, and you've got to give me back that 100 rand note. Okay, it's not a loan. It's completely different. Okay. Where do you know that halacha from? I mean, you've learned it in the Gemara, but it's of lulav, exactly. So that's what he says here. Where does Rava tell us about the concept of Matanah menas lehachzir? So he says the Amarava heilach esrog ze amanas shetachzir really. Rava prints the case. The guy says, "Yeah, take the esrog. Remember, it's got to be shelcha. It's got to be you've got to own the thing. So take it." But give it back to me. I'm giving it to you to own it for that point while you're taking it, but you have to give it back to me. So he takes it and he does the mitzvah and then he gives it back to him. So he's yotze. Why is he yotze? But if he doesn't give it back to him, he's not yotze. So why is he yotze? He's yotze because at the point in time when he got it, then he fulfilled the mitzvah. So it's not that's what Rashi says. Look at Rashi there. He stole it. He didn't give it back. He stole it. I gave it to you, but I gave it to you only on condition that you give it back to me. So therefore, if you don't give it back to me, what? So then it's gezel mafreya. Ela amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, hold on a second. No. Bechulei kani. Rav Ashi says, now in all the cases, right, it does work. Why? Levad mi isha. Why does it work in all those cases? It must work. It must work because it's a Matanah menas lehachzir shma Matanah. That's what Rava holds. So why is it that it doesn't work with Isha? A woman can't be acquired. She can't be niknes through chalipin. What's chalipin? Chalipin is this like strange concept where you use something as a representative kinyan. Why can't a woman be acquired with chalipin?
Well, firstly, she has to do the kinyan herself. She has to accept it. What do you
mean? So she does the kinyan suda. Let's say kinyan suda. How does it work? Kinyan suda. We do it, and Leo, you did it with your ksuba, right? What did you do? Is that was Rav Shmuley, I think, right? Rav Shmuley did the ksuba. There was the
Rav Kaplan.
Say again.
Yeah, it was Rav Kaplan. You just lift up the pen.
Kaplan. So what did you do?
Lift up the pen and you make the kinyan on the pen or whatever as a symbolic kinyan of the Isha. But okay. I think the difference here is that
that's not correct. You made a kinyan as a symbolic acceptance of the terms of the ksuba.
Oh yeah, I did know that. But
right? So
it's different here because you swap, you have to give it back after. No?
So that's the Matanah menat lehachzir. That's chalipin. But the most important part of it is that you acquire it as representing something, right? Like, and it can be done for many. Like, so if a person wants to sell a house, for example, now, you know what you can't do. There are different types of kinyanim that you can do, right? So you can't do hagbah. Good luck with that one. And you can't do mashicha. You can't pull your house along unless it's a caravan. You know, in Israel, you can use that one, right? You can pull those, you know, those little caravans on the top of the hills, right? So how do you do it? So you got to do a kinyan chalipin, you got to do a kinyan illa, like all different types of kinyan that you can do, but they're all representative. They're not proper ma'aseh kinyanim. So this is the same thing. So the woman can't be acquired with a ma'aseh kinyan in this way of a representative. Okay, Amalei Rav Huna, Amalei Rav Nechemia, Rav Ashi. He said, oh, yeah, you know, actually, that's actually what we do normally say. That Rava. So somehow there's a little bit of a awkwardness, let's call it, at the beginning of the Gemara, where it seems to be that they quoted Rava incorrectly. Because if we're going to say that as Rava does say concerning a lulav, that a Matanah menat lehachzir shema Matanah, so then it must be that that Rava actually holds that at the end of the day, all of these things are kinyanim except for the isha. Okay, what I want to do is the following. I want to look at firstly the Shulchan Aruch on this issue of lulav, just so we get that clear. Shulchan Aruch, we'll look at the Mishnah Berurah because it gives that a little bit of insight, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper into the concept of Matanah menat lehachzir, Shema Matanah. Okay.
Just going to grab mine. That's right.
Okay, I'll put it on the screen as well for those who haven't got. Just got to find it.
Please.
Okay. And there we go. Okay. I should have got the right. There we go. Okay, can you see that? Anyone want to read or should I read? I'm happy to. I don't mind. I'll take that as I should read. Okay. Nas noloy. Al menat lehachzir. If he gives it to him on the condition that he'll return it, that's our case. He fulfills his obligation, and he gives it back to him. I mean, the Shulchan Aruch is clear. That's the din. So, and it's not a din in one thing. It's a din. It's a din in the concept of Matanah menat lehachzir shema Matanah. Okay. And if he doesn't fulfill it. It's amazing. This is fundamental. Even if he pays him the cash for it. Like so you heard it. You say to Lior, okay, here's my lulav with esrog, Matanah menat lehachzir. Lior, you pick it up and you get the sashka shmaka feeling, gavaldik, amazing. Oh, I want to buy this. So I'm not giving it back to you. I'm going to pay you for it. You haven't fulfilled your obligation because that's not the part of the deal. And even if it gets taken from you somehow, by some type of oinus, okay, then what? You haven't fulfilled your obligation, which we have to understand that there's a lot in that little statement. And also, if he gives it to him after the zman mitzvah, that's not clear what it means. If he gives it after the zman mitzvah, lo yatsa, he doesn't fulfill his obligation. But I just want to show you something amazing here. This afilu ne'enas miyado. What does that mean? Oh, don't know what happened there. What does it mean, afilu ne'enas miyado?
That if something causes it to go out of your hand without your control, so it's stolen from
without
you.
Your control. So why does the Shulchan Aruch even bring it? It's brought in the Gemara, but why?
Because of Oinus.
Say again?
Because of Oinus Achmona. Generally, you can't be punished for Oinus.
But he's not getting punished. Something bigger in here.
Well, he hasn't fulfilled his obligation.
Why not?
Because he had to finish it by giving it back. That became part of the mitzvah, was to give it back.
But it's not his fault that he couldn't give it back.
He didn't, yeah.
So, in other words, when you see someone's holding something for somebody else, and there's this concept of honest, you've got to look back into the 4 different types of shomrim. Okay? Because normally when a person has something that they've got to give to somebody else, right, it's an issue of shmirah. So I saw from, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who it was. But what he says you have to understand that if something happens, if you give me your thing, menat lehachzir, okay, and it gets lost or something happens to it, I do not have to buy you another one. That's not the deal. I have to give you, that's what I was saying with that 100 rand note. That's why I have to give you back that 100 rand. If I've lost this thing, I don't have to give you back another one because I now owe you that one. That's not the case. That's not the case. Because I wasn't a shomer on for you. I wasn't anything. You gave it to me as a complete gift. I now have lost it, right? Which means that what I have, there's no damages that I have to pay for you because it was mine. It wasn't yours. At the point in time when it got lost, the point in time when something happened to it, it was mine, not yours. Which is quite, it's an unbelievable deal to make in that little Shulchan Aruch, right? And that is the proof on such a deep level as to why I can fulfill my mitzvah of lulav with your lulav and still give it back to you. I can do it and then I give it back to you. And really what's happening is that, and we're going to see that from the Ritva, Bezrat Hashem, this Ritva and the Rosh, and really what's happening is that as you give it to me, it's a complete kinyan, and I give it back to you, it's a whole new kinyan. It's 2 completely different processes. But we'll see that, please God. We'll get there. Okay. So comes along the Ramah. The Ramah says, look at this. I can give you an esrog. Okay? As a Matanah. What does that mean? Think carefully. I've got an esrog, okay? I'll give you the clue to it. I haven't yet, it's not yet, it's the first day of Sukkot, and I haven't used it yet. So it hasn't been used. Okay? And Leo, you come along. Sorry, Kabatsnik, I'll use you because I haven't used you all. Okay. So Kabatsnik, you come along and you say, oh, that's a beautiful esrog. Can I make a broch on it? And I say to you, you say, can I see it? So I say, yeah, sure. You know what? I'll even give it to you as a Matanah, but you're not allowed to use it for the mitzvah. You cannot be Makadesh it. There's nothing, hasn't been used yet. So you haven't been Makadesh it. That's what it means. It's got no Kedusha. The esrog's and esrog's and esrog's. It's a piece of fruit. You only Makadesh the esrog from the time that you start using it.
How are you Makadesh esrog?
By making a bracha. Al netilas lulav. You pick up that esrog, that's now a chayfet shel mitzvah. That's it. There's nothing else.
But Rav, Rabbi, with this case, as in, with this case, it'd be the same thing with the lulav as well. As
exactly the same.
Give it. So then, what's the amazingness of this? Like,
no, what I'm saying is that he's saying if you give it on a certain condition. You can do that. I can give you my esrog to look at, to play with, to whatever, to eat it. You can do whatever you want with it. Almanas shelo yaktishenu. I can give it to you conditionally. The law garami matanah manas lachzir, because there's no difference between that and a matanah manas lachzir, meaning that the minute I give it to you, it's yours to do it as you please on one condition.
Yeah.
The one condition on the other one is yours to do as you please, as long as you give it back to me, and then it's lemafreya, yours. Once I get it back, it's yours, meaning that you did the mitzvah with yours. In this case, if you would do the mitzvah with that esrog, right, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah at all, because that wasn't part of the deal. Okay, so don't do that. It'll be a very nasty thing to do to somebody. But anyway, have you guys got it? Okay, so says the Mishnah Berurah on this. We said the Matanah manas lachzir shma Matanah. Says the Mishnah Berurah. The kasher chayfet ze natun laf. when this chayfetz, this object is given to you, nifka kol kocho mimenu. The second you get it in your hands, you've nifka, removed. All his power over that thing has disappeared. Shamar amanas shetachziri. Hurak tanai, kashar tanaim. Sha'adam yachol asnois b'mechir asub b'matnasoi. I can make set up any conditions in any sale that I do. If I wanted to make a condition, I can. So, for example, we put it, Baruch Hashem, Ken and Hora, an offer into it for a house today. Okay, so there's certain conditions, right? What does that mean? It means that if those conditions are fulfilled, then the sale goes through. But if they're not fulfilled, it doesn't go through. It's nothing. It's a piece of paper that's worth absolutely nothing, right? So if we agree to conditions, those conditions are what stand. I can say to you, I'm going to give you my car on condition that you take this cup and walk around with it for 30 days while you're driving the car, which means that if on the 29th day you don't, you put down the cup, that's always, the deal's off. Doesn't work because that's out tonight. You understand? So that's what he's saying. But if he loses koyach and then he gives it back and it's fully on. Okay. V'im lo, says the Shulchan Aruch, v'im lo lehachzir. If he doesn't give it to him, v'hu adin kashenifsal b'yada lehachzir. That's an amazing idea. That what happens if I take the lulav and esrog and I shake it up? I had a few years ago, I had the most unbelievable esrog. Like it was mamish. Like it was the most beautiful esrog I'd ever seen or bought or whatever. And I got it for an incredible deal because I was helping Rabbi Levi in Cape Town with some things. So he sent me this esrog and I paid like very little for it. And it was gorgeous, like absolutely gorgeous. And I had a little pitum on it. And I've got this little esrog case. I put it in the esrog case, and I'm so proud of myself. And I'm walking, okay. And because I always take lulav and esrog in the sukkah before davening. And I'm walking to shul, and it's so lekker, and I trip, okay. And this thing, my esrog case goes flying, lands, and I open up this thing, and the pitum's gone. It's gone, broken off. Right? Like I was a killer. So this is what he's saying. Let's say you give the oak your esrog and he trips and he falls and he breaks the esrog. He breaks off the pitum. So then what? The almanas, what the Mishnah is saying is that the almanas lehachzir means that you got to give it back in the condition that you got it, that you received it. It was a kosher esrog, and now you're giving it back a apostle one, so therefore it doesn't work. Okay, so then you're still not yotzi. You haven't been yotzi. You have done the mitzvah with the most beautiful esrog in the world, but you haven't done it. You haven't done the mitzvah lemafre. Okay. Afilu natul lodamav, even if you give the guy the geld, the money. He says, you can't say what's the difference between the money or the esrog. Why? Kevin tzarich lo latzeis yedei choiva bevadei hifkikpid al halulav gufay. Says why? Shetzarich lo latzeis yedei choiva bevadei. He says because why? Since he wants to fulfill his obligation, he's makpid on that lulav, and since he's makpid on that lulav, he wants his lulav back, and that's where it is. Okay. Says yeah.
Two questions. Number one, when we say etrog and lulav, we can assume it's just talking about the whole bundle. It doesn't really make much of a difference, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make a difference.
Fine. Okay. Also, if he's not yosei the mitzvah, can you say it's bracha levatala then?
If he's not yotze the mitzvah,
if he's nifsal or nenas,
yes, then it's a bracha levatala. So, but then the din of the bracha levatala will depend on why he doesn't return it.
Right.
Because if he doesn't return it because he's nenas or because something happens, so then it's not a bracha levatala as such. It's just not yotze on the mitzvah. Okay. So then here, this is where it came from. This whole issue of the pikadon, etc. Okay. La'achar zman mitzvato. La'achar zman mitzvato means after the time of the mitzvah. If he returns at that point, it's arotz eloimer. Afilu b'oisa yom. Imhu sha'a she'i efshar od latzeis boy. Big one. I get your lulav and esrog. When? What time? 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. It's shkia at 5:30. So I'm putzking around, whatever the case is, and I forget to give it back to you on time, I've not fulfilled my mitzvah. Why? Because I have to give it back to you within the time period that you can still do the mitzvah. He says that if you've already given, if the other guy's already made the bracha, so then at least give it to him in the next day. Even though the guy didn't say specifically when you have to return it, obviously, I'm giving it to you, doesn't mean that you can keep it. I'm giving it to menat lehachzir so that I can still fulfill the mitzvah. That's an interesting question, because he's saying here that if I've done the mitzvah and I give you my lulav and esrog, and you keep it till the next day, so even though I've done the mitzvah, there might be a tzad to say that it's okay. However, what happens if I want my lulav and esrog for your wife? Or you want it for your wife, right? Yehuda, your mom wants to do lulav and esrog. Or your brothers or mothers, fathers, whatever. So that would seem to be a problem. Okay. And so that's why he says...
You can't give it to somebody else if you've borrowed it.
No. I had that case before where I gave it to Eitan, and Eitan then wanted to pass it on to Yehuda. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
So you can't do that. Because the minute you give it to somebody else, how would you give it to them? You'd have to say what menat lehachzir. But the minute you're giving it to somebody else, you've lost. Our connection's lost now. So it would seem to be that you can't do such a thing. Okay. 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 So. This is a whole discussion on that. I'm happy. You guys decide. Do you want to go into this, or do you want to continue with the concept of Matanah menat lehachzir? Let's go to Matanah menat lehachzir with the Ritva and the Rosh. You happy with that? Okay. So, these are all the things. Let me just get it. Okay, yeah. So the Ritva says, he asks the question, because the obvious question that you need to ask when it comes to Matanah menat lehachzir is the transfer of ownership. How does it actually work? What's the mechanism? So he says here, Umiu, Matanah menat lehachzir, hakna'ah gemura hi. That's a huge thing to say. That Matanah is a proper, complete kinyan. Mamon shelo, and it's your mamon. It's yours. And when you return it, there's got to be a proper kinyan. So how does that work? What is he saying? Or what's the Ritva actually saying? So let's say you take my lulav. You can't borrow it because I've given it to you as a Matanah lehachzir, and I need to run out of shul for whatever reason. So you take it and you very nicely, you wrap it back, with all the tinfoil, whatever everybody does, with all the chazarai, and you put it on my makom. It's not really my makom because it's the shul's makom. Okay? So have you returned it?
I don't understand your question based on the Ritva's language. Like, where are you getting the question from?
The Ritva's language is this. Let me underline it so I'll show you what I mean. The Ritva's language is that it needs a hakna'ah gemura by. Kashar akna'os ba'alma. According to the Ritva, since our engagement was a real proper sale from me to you, in order for you to give it back to me, as per the conditions of Matanah menat lehachzir, what has to happen?
Needs to be given back the same way it was given.
Well, it's got to be given back in a manner in which I make an acquisition back of it. Otherwise, I haven't got it back.
So you come back into shul and you make a kinyan.
And if I don't? I don't know the answer to my question right now. But do you have to find me in order for me to do a proper kinyan? That's the nafka mina here. Yeah, you get that, guys? That's the nafka mina. How do you have to get it? So that's why it says mistavra. Now listen to this. This is like an unbelievable case. This is how powerful the kinyan is. She'im she'avda lebal choyvoi. Let's say it's now early morning on first day Yontif, and I come in there and I see you've got this beautiful esrog, and I come and I ask you if I can take it with pleasure. Matanah menat lehachzir, and I take it, and I'm doing like with all the kavanas and all the other things that I do, and then Lior, I owe you money. I owe you 1,000 rand. And you come and you say, nice esrog. I said, you know what? I owe you the money. So this will be I'm meshubed this to the money that I owe. And you feel secure enough that you know that because there's this esrog, which is worth so much that I'll give you back the 1,000 rand. You happy with that? Okay. So now, whose esrog is it?
Well, when you do that, when you say it's meshubed, does he then take it?
So that's he doesn't take it, but if I default on the payment, I default on my payment that I owe Lior. So does Lior have the right to take the esrog? So that's what he says. He says what? She'im sha'abda labal koivoi harehu meshubad umuchzar v'gova mimena la'achar chazara. It's an unbelievable thing. And I own it. That's the Ritva. I don't know if the Ritva is saying is a real case. He's saying as the theoretical case, because I don't know how you could ever do that. Like, how would you be meshubet something on Yontef? Because that's the only time it really needs to be, mine. But whatever the case is, he's saying theoretically that kinyan is so complete that if I meshubet that esrog to my, I give you back your esrog, kabatznik. I give it back to you. Okay, I give it back to you. Lior can go and claim that esrog from you. Because it's meshubet. Because at the time, it was meshubet to me like any other thing. If I have my glass over here and I meshubet my glass here to the loan that I own, and then I sell it to somebody else, the shibut still applies to that thing. It doesn't remove itself. It's a very powerful thing. Just by the way, I mean, I'm getting quite excited about it, but I think it's a very powerful thing. And I hope.
Rabbi, why though? As in why? Why does it?
Because because if you don't say that, it seems to be if you don't say that, then there's no way that you can say that you yotzizan the esrog on Sukkot, because it has to be yours, not sort of yours, maybe yours, kind of yours. It has to be yours.
But even if, as in to come and collect the esrog a week after Sukkot is worthless.
Nachon. That's what I'm saying. It's more of a theoretical.
It's not a great shibud.
But conceptually, that's what he's saying. Okay.
I mean, if you ask anyone who sells etrog after candlelight, everything's worthless.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Like, where
before Sukkot
is worth 500 and after Sukkot it's like worth nothing. You feel like a real shibud for 7 days. Okay. Now, if you look at this, V'chein data Rav Yeshaya over here this is the Rosh. The Rosh says, Rav Yeshaya shehikshe ma yesh bein Matanah al menat lehachzir l'shol. What is the difference between a Matanah al menat lehachzir and a person who borrows something? B'shnei hu sheloi ad sheyit lenu. Because in both cases, it says until he takes it back, gives it back. Shnei mein haguf kanui lo. He says in actual fact he believes, and in both of them the guf is not kanui lo, but tirets. And he says the Matanah menat lehachzir ein chayev be'onsin. The Matanah menat lehachzir you're not chayev in onsin. The lahachi yahave le b'matanah because he gave it to him as a gift. So since he gave it to him as a gift, it's a little bit less powerful from the of the case of the Ritva, but since he gave it to him as a gift, he's still not chayev in the loss of it. The question is, what is his liability to the owner of the esrog? Okay, let's just look at this Ksois quickly. So the Ksois says the following: Omnam lulei divra rosh v'ritva. If it wasn't for the Rosh and the Ritva, you got like these two powerful Rishonim. If it wasn't for them, you could say another thing. It's interesting. could possibly say, the Matanah menat lehachzir, who kamashma. Matanah menat lehachzir is very simple, as it implies. V'ain boy t'nai hakna ele shenasun lo b'matanah. Esa etrog asher yetzer boy. For Matanah gemara v'chalut ad azman. He says, and like maybe it's just simple. Maybe it's just simple. You don't have to make a whole spiel about it. It's very simple. The guy needs it. At the point in time, he uses the estrog, it's his for the estrog, he gives it back to him, Shalom al Yisrael, then why do you have to go to this whole business? And he says, from the Rashbam, he says, Lo nitzan l'rishon el lakayim by mitzvahs natila. He only gave it to the other guy to fulfill the mitzvah. Of natila, v'lachem, karina bay. The ein l'sheni koach boy calls man shira'ui lazeh rishon latzais boy. He says, and not only that, the Rishon, i.e. me, it's my lulav, I have not yet fulfilled my mitzvah of the lulav. I give it to you. The only thing you can do with it is do your mitzvah. You don't own it. You can't be meshubed it. You can't meshabed it. You can't do anything with it. Why? Ein l'sheni koach boy, what? Whilst it's still ra'ui for the Rishon to fulfill his mitzvah. Because that's all he got it for. He just got it for the mitzvah. So there's it's quite a bit of a difference in the power of what Matanah menat lehachzir is. Is it a thing that is given totally, or is it a thing that is just given partially? Okay, so.
So Rob, can you just explain the Rashbam again?
Sorry, say again?
Can you just explain the Rashbam again?
Sure. So the Rashbam says that the only reason I give you the lulav is to fulfill the mitzvah. Right? So, and it's, you have no other, the ein l'sheni koach boy calls man sharawi lazeh rishon latzais boy. Also, while that I can still fulfill the mitzvah. Right? The only koach you have in it is what? Is to use it to be makam the mitzvah. That's it. There's no other thing that you can play around with that. You can't be meshabed it, you can't do anything with it. It's only there for you to use in the mitzvah, which is a much higher level.
So the Rashbam
a much lower level of kinyan.
So the Rashbam and the Kessos are basically negating the Ritva and the Rosh.
Based on a specific Tanai. There's an implied Tanai that you'll only be able to have ownership of it for the usage of the mitzvah, whilst while that you can do the mitzvah. And until that time's over, then you have to give it back, because there's no value to you other than that. Does that make sense to you?
Right, so therefore the Rashbam and the Kessos are basically negating the Ritva and the Rosh and saying they're going too far and too extreme.
Correct. They're saying it's not as extreme as the Ritva and the Rosh. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Now look here. This is the Rambam. The Rambam. Okay, a few more minutes, guys. Are we good to go for a few more minutes? So the Rambam, I thought we'd do this in 2 shiurim, but it's cool. The Rambam says the following. Remember, this is the case. It's like, we go back to like Agomara, right? He says, yeah, with this dinar, I'm giving you the dinar. I want to be Makodesh, but there's a condition that you got to give it back to me. And a Makodeshes. Whether she brings it or not. Because if she doesn't return it, then she hasn't fulfilled the condition. But if she does return it to him, then what? Look at the ads in these words. She gets no benefit. And she's got nothing. She has to get, and that's what the griz. That's the griz is the Briskerov. He says, what does it mean? We're going to finish quickly. How does it work? That the Kiddushin is done with the money, not just with the enjoyment that she gets. Got to actually done with the money itself. Rambam says also what? The Rambam says obviously it's got to be done with the Kiddushin. We know that it's got to be done with the Kiddushin, but there's one more thing. It's got to have hanoah for her. She's got to benefit somehow from the Kiddushin. I think you heard that this is something that you were playing with quite a bit and you were concerned about it, right? She's got to have hanoah, says the Rambam. Even if she's got the money, if she doesn't get hanoah from the money, it's not going to anything. And therefore, according to the Rambam, if she's mekudeshes with a dinner, lehachzir, the minute she gives it back, she gets no hanoah. And so therefore, even though he's given her money, because there's been a kinyan of like that, right? She doesn't get hanoah, and therefore says the Rambam, it doesn't work. So the Rambam, it's only the Rambam. The others don't say the same thing. The Rambam says it's based on her hanoah, or her not getting of hanoah, based on that money. Gentlemen, let's stop there. Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week.
This Rambam could have gone to